It came in at 7:42 a.m., just as I was brushing my teeth. Eric's name lit up my phone like any other morning I expected a grocery reminder or a half-hearted love you before his flight to Phoenix. But the moment I saw the preview, my toothbrush paused midair. Natalie, I've decided I want a divorce. I found someone who makes me truly happy. You can keep the house. I've moved our retirement funds. I hope we can be civil. My first thought wasn't grief. It was precision. I stood in our master bathroom white tile floor, cold against my feet, mint toothpaste dripping into the sink, and read that message 3 more times. My pulse didn't even quicken. It was as if a part of me, the analyst, not the wife, had taken control. He moved the retirement funds. I walked slowly to the bedroom, picked up my laptop, and opened the interface I had spent 6 years developing. Fractal fraud risk assessment and controls through algorithmic logic. It was the system I'd helped design for corporate clients. Real-time anomaly detection, pattern disruption flags, transaction tracing. And what Eric didn't know, couldn't have known, is that 2 weeks ago I rolled out a private version of Fractal to monitor our own financial accounts. Quietly, silently, automatically. And last night it had worked. At 2:17 a.m., Fractal had detected an attempted transfer from our joint 401k to a shell corporation registered in Nevada. The system flagged it, froze it, and locked the destination account, all without human interference. I pulled up the alert log. Origin E. Roads, Columbus Branch Destination, Bright Edge Holdings. Suspicious entity action, taken auto freeze. Incident report for 3 out or... I stared at the log for a full minute. He really thought he could outmaneuver me. Eric, the man who once asked me how compounding interest worked. The man who thought a private account with no paper trail would go unnoticed, forgetting I wrote the very system that catches those moves for a living. He thought he had beaten me with a text message. He didn't realize I had already caught him before I even knew he was leaving. I closed the laptop, walked back to the bathroom, finished brushing my teeth. No drama, no rage, just protocol. Because this wasn't heartbreak, this was a breach. And I had been built to respond to breaches. There was a time I would have read that text and shattered. Not because I was weak, but because for 22 years I truly believed in the version of us we'd built, the one that started with high school dances and Saturday morning bagels, and somehow survived student loans, miscarriages, relocations, and late nights spent working on opposite sides of the dining room table. Eric had always been the talker, the magnetic one, the type to command a room with ease while I stayed in the background quietly calculating the path forward. He sold stories. I built systems. That was our rhythm. That was our balance. We married young. Not out of pressure, but love. Real, naive, stubborn love. He used to leave me sticky notes on the mirror, always with bad puns. I'm rooting for you. Love from your financial plant nerd. I still have a drawer full of them. Or had. I don't know if I'll ever open that drawer again. While Eric climbed through marketing roles, I focused on structure budget spreadsheets, automatic deductions, long-term planning. I tracked our insurance policies, built our retirement plan, optimized our mortgage. I wasn't just the numbers person. I was the architect of our life. I remember once after a late dinner, he looked at me across the table and said, "You keep us standing. I'm the roof, but you're the frame." I didn't realize then that even roofs can collapse. He traveled more in recent years. Conferences, client visits, retreats that never made it to our shared calendar. I trusted him, because why wouldn't I? We had routines. Friday takeout, yearly vacations, monthly check-ins on our Roth IRA contributions. We even made PowerPoints together, our weird version of intimacy, planning out our next 10 years in bullet points and color-coded tabs. I thought we were building something long-term, something built on mutual respect. I thought I knew him. And maybe once I did. Before the ambition turned to entitlement. Before admiration turned into assumption. Before he looked at our life, our carefully constructed, hard-won life, and decided it wasn't enough. That text wasn't just betrayal. It was proof of how invisible I'd become to him, that he thought he could dismantle our future with a single message and call it closure. But what he forgot, what he never understood, is that I never built this life for him. I built it with him, and now I was ready to rebuild it without him. I used to dismiss it as stress, the quiet sighs after meetings, the new fixation with simplifying his sudden irritation with anything that required planning. "Do we really need to talk about the Roth again?" he snapped once, waving off my spreadsheet like it was a menu he didn't have time to read. That wasn't like Eric. He loved my charts. He used to brag about how his wife could predict tax shifts like a wizard. But somewhere along the way, the admiration turned into mockery. Subtle, casual cutting. All these numbers, Nat. At some point, can't we just live? It wasn't just the attitude shift. It was his curiosity. He started asking about my work in a way that felt off. How do fraud flags actually get triggered? What if someone opened a new account but used a VPN? Would your system still detect that? At first, I chalked it up to him finally taking interest in what I did. God knows I'd listened to enough pitches about marketing funnels and brand synergy. But it wasn't interest. It was reconnaissance. Then came the secrecy. New passwords on his devices, late-night calls he took in the garage, an unfamiliar charge on our shared card, a luxury watch boutique in Cincinnati, a city he claimed he hadn't visited in months. When I asked, he smiled and said it must have been a billing error. He even opened a new credit card, one I only found out about when a pre-approval letter arrived in the mail with his name and a different address, listed under preferred billing. I told myself it was midlife anxiety, that maybe he was struggling with getting older, with his career plateauing, with watching me finally get recognition for the system I'd spent years building. But now I see the truth. He wasn't having a crisis. He was building an exit. And worse, he was trying to use my own work against me. What he didn't know, and this still makes me shake my head, is that Fractal was designed with a mirror protocol, meaning every time a user pokes around looking for vulnerabilities, the system logs them. Quietly, without triggering alerts, like a spider watching from its web. Eric triggered the mirror protocol 5 times in the last 3 months. I hadn't even checked the logs. I never thought I'd need to. He must have thought I was too busy, too focused on work, too detached from the real world to notice his digital footprints. But that's the thing about systems built to detect fraud. They don't miss a thing, even when we do. When Fractal froze the retirement transfer, I assumed that was a selfish, underhanded financial move from a man I no longer recognized. But then I opened the extended incident log. What I found made my stomach drop. Eric hadn't just attempted one transfer. There were 3 within the last 10 days, all aimed at different shell accounts. And one of them wasn't even linked to our finances. It was tied to Blue Cliff Strategies, the marketing firm where Eric had worked for the past 9 years. At first I thought it was a mistake, a misrouting, but Fractal doesn't make those kinds of errors, so I dug deeper. The transaction metadata showed a layered chain of accounts. Money moved from Blue Cliff's discretionary marketing fund split, laundered through 2 real estate holding LLCs, and pulled in a high-interest offshore account. It was methodical, polished, premeditated. I cross-checked the recipient names. One kept repeating Bryce Langston, Eric's longtime colleague and friend. The same Bryce who stayed over when their team came to Columbus for strategy retreats. The same Bryce who used to call me the brain of the family. He and Eric weren't just planning a divorce. They were executing a full-scale financial crime. I didn't panic. I documented, printed the logs, downloaded redundancies, created a forensic trace folder. Then I reached out to the Federal Financial Crimes Division. I gave them everything: Fractal's logs, IP traces, transaction chains, time-stamped login patterns, emails between Eric and Bryce, some of which Eric had accessed through our home network. He didn't realize the guest Wi-Fi ran through my monitored subnet. The agents were polite, professional. But when I showed them how Eric had accessed internal Blue Cliff documents from our IP address, their posture shifted. One of them leaned forward. "You built this system?" he asked. "Yes. And it caught this." In real time, I nodded. Fractal isn't just detection, it's predictive. It flagged intent before execution. By the time I left the field office, the case had already been elevated. Not just marital fraud, corporate embezzlement, cybercrime, tax evasion, millions in siphoned funds through ghost properties, fake campaigns, and redirected bonuses. Eric had been bold, but he forgot something. I was the architect of the system. He thought my work distracted me, that while he built his escape plan, I'd be too buried in code and dashboards to notice. But he was wrong. I wasn't buried. I was watching. And now it wasn't just my future he tried to steal. It was Blue Cliff's too. And the system he underestimated had already taken the first step toward justice. There was no confrontation, no screaming phone call, no angry email fired back in the heat of betrayal. Eric wasn't worth that kind of energy. Instead, I did what I've always done. I documented, verified, and prepared. The moment I handed everything over to the federal investigators, I stopped thinking of it as a divorce. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about accountability, theft, conspiracy, a crime plain and simple. And I had the receipts, all of them. While Eric scrambled, while he lawyered up, sent panicked messages through mutual friends, and tried to frame himself as misguided but well-intentioned, I didn't say a word, not in public. Not in private. I just kept refining the evidence log. Fractal was built to serve businesses, banks, insurance firms, pension funds. But now it was serving me. The same logic that had saved clients millions was now building the foundation of a federal case. There was no rage in it. No need for vengeance, just pure function. Elegant, clean, unflinching. And as it all unfolded, I began to realize something I hadn't expected. I didn't want him punished because he hurt me. I wanted him held accountable because he thought I wouldn't notice. Because he believed the system I spent my life perfecting could be outsmarted by ego and overconfidence. Because he mistook my silence for ignorance and my loyalty for weakness. Meanwhile, the agents were moving quickly. Fractal's evidence matrix allowed them to map every shell account, every linked transfer, every communication. They found burner emails, encrypted messages between Eric and Bryce property listings for homes that didn't exist. By week 3, subpoenas had been filed. Bryce's digital trail led to additional fraud fake invoices, ghost consultants' stolen bonus structures. Blue Cliff's internal audit team was looped in. Their HR department went dead silent. Then they sent me a note. We've placed both employees under investigation. Your cooperation is invaluable. Eric, for all his charm and theatrics, had made a fatal mistake. He underestimated the system, and worse, he underestimated the woman who built it. So I stayed quiet, kept logging, kept sorting, kept tightening the noose around the truth. Every click, every bite, every transaction lined up with precision. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come in the form of fire or fury. Sometimes it comes in the form of a well-run audit. And by the time the court date was set, everything he tried to steal was no longer slipping through cracks. It was already sealed into a case that would destroy the very life he tried to build without me. The courtroom was cold, neutral, wood-paneled walls, stiff chairs, a faint hum from the overhead lights. The kind of place built for facts, not feelings, which suited me perfectly. Eric sat at the defense table in a tailored suit 2 sizes too tight. Bryce Langston beside him, hollow-eyed, jaw tight. Their legal team whispered urgently, sifting through folders and screens. The calm had left them. The control had slipped. And I didn't need to lift a finger to undo them, because the evidence was already alive. The prosecutors led with documents clean-dated, time-stamped. Fractal's logs displayed on a monitor like blueprints of a crime. Transfers mapped out in spiderweb diagrams. Burned metadata showing forged signatures. Bryce's email history lined up with every movement of stolen funds. Offshore holdings, fake LLCs, real estate sales that never closed. Then came the voice recordings. One played on loop in my head before they even hit play. She's so focused on her work she'll never see it coming, Eric had said in one of the calls to Bryce. The room didn't gasp, but it tightened. You could feel the jury lean forward, the judge adjust her glasses, the air itself go still. Then I took the stand. I didn't rehearse. I didn't memorize. I didn't need to. I told the truth. I developed Fractal as a predictive detection system. I explained voice-steady fingers interlaced in my lap. It's designed to identify fraud based on behavior, not just transactions. It sees patterns, flags intent, tracks inconsistencies in real time. The prosecutor asked how it caught Eric. It didn't catch him, I corrected gently. It caught the choices he made over time. He accessed protected systems, altered financial pathways, left digital fingerprints on every shell account and forged transaction. And your relationship to the defendant, I met Eric's eyes. For the first time since that morning text. We were married for 22 years. He believed I wouldn't notice. There was silence, heavy, full. Later, when the verdict came down guilty on all counts, Eric's shoulders dropped like gravity had finally claimed what ego had kept afloat. Sentencing was swift. 18 years. White collar, yes, but with restitution, asset seizure, and professional ruin. Bryce got 12. They didn't look at me when they left the courtroom, but I wasn't watching them anymore. I was looking at the monitor where Fractal's interface still flickered. Lines, dots, proof. That system hadn't just caught their crimes. It had caught me right before I fell and helped me stand back up. I sold the house in Columbus a month after sentencing. It was never really mine, not in the ways that mattered. Every wall had become a quiet reminder of a man who thought betrayal could be buried under sleek countertops and neutral paint. I packed what I needed, donated what I didn't, and left the rest behind. Norfolk is slower, gentler. My new home sits on a quiet street shaded by oak trees with a screened-in porch that catches the evening breeze. There's a modest community college a few miles away, and every Tuesday I teach a small cohort of students the fundamentals of fraud detection and forensic finance. I tell them the truth, that systems are only as strong as the people who build them, and that the best ones don't just catch errors, they catch intentions. Fractal now protects 10 organizations across 4 states. One of my former clients offered to buy the rights outright. I said no. It was never about profit. It was about protection. It still is. Eric is a footnote now, a case study in his own downfall. Sometimes I hear updates, appeals denied, assets frozen, Bryce's name surfacing in another internal audit, in another firm foolish enough to trust charm over caution. But I don't chase the headlines. I don't need to. I didn't write this ending for spectacle. I didn't burn anything down. I didn't scream or rage or beg. I just built something that lasted. And when he tried to take it from me, it held firm, stronger than I ever imagined. Some nights I sit on the porch with a cup of tea watching the breeze move through the trees. The stillness is unfamiliar but welcome. I used to think peace would feel empty. It doesn't. It feels earned. And if you ask me what I feel when I look back, I'd tell you this. Not revenge. Not victory. Control. Because I didn't win by outmaneuvering him. I won by trusting what I built in work and life in myself. Systems endure, people don't. And when they fall, truth remains. It came in at 7:42 a.m., just as I was brushing my teeth. Eric's name lit up my phone like any other morning I expected a grocery reminder or a half-hearted love you before his flight to Phoenix. But the moment I saw the preview, my toothbrush paused midair. Natalie, I've decided I want a divorce. I found someone who makes me truly happy. You can keep the house. I've moved our retirement funds. I hope we can be civil. My first thought wasn't grief. It was precision. I stood in our master bathroom white tile floor, cold against my feet, mint toothpaste dripping into the sink, and read that message 3 more times. My pulse didn't even quicken. It was as if a part of me, the analyst, not the wife, had taken control. He moved the retirement funds. I walked slowly to the bedroom, picked up my laptop, and opened the interface I had spent 6 years developing. Fractal fraud risk assessment and controls through algorithmic logic. It was the system I'd helped design for corporate clients. real-time anomaly detection, pattern disruption flags, transaction tracing. And what Eric didn't know, couldn't have known, is that 2 weeks ago I rolled out a private version of Fractal to monitor our own financial accounts. Quietly, silently, automatically. And last night it had worked. At 2:17 a.m., Fractal had detected an attempted transfer from our joint 401k to a shell corporation registered in Nevada. The system flagged it, froze it, and locked the destination account, all without human interference. I pulled up the alert log. Origin E Roads, Columbus Branch destination, Bright Edge Holdings. Suspicious entity action, taken auto freeze. Incident report for 3 out or... I stared at the log for a full minute. He really thought he could outmaneuver me. Eric, the man who once asked me how compounding interest worked.